is if you are running a catch-all campaign, make sure that you go into the listing groups and individualize the item ID. Once you have that data, right, you could look through the products and see maybe you ran it for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and you're starting to see the shape of the patterns of which products in your catch-all campaigns are, one, not getting impressions, two, getting clicks but not conversions, and then the best case scenario is clicks and conversions. So I'll tier that out where if 2 or 3 weeks go by, I have a catch-all campaign, I'm starting to see which products are getting clicked. I'll go ahead and exclude all of it and then create a new item ID where it's itemized, where you go through the product groups and say, okay, this got a conversion, this stays. This has a high CTR, this stays. Okay, this got a lot of impressions, but no clicks, get that out of there. You know, so you could start to optimize it, not the way we would optimize either a search or shopping with negative keywords, but more of a product listing optimization where we're only feeding budget to the products that are going to get us, first of all, conversions, and then second of all, hopefully a high CTR. Just kidding. We won't do that.
216 views. It got 5 likes and 1 dislike. So that must have been an agency being like, oh, these guys suck.
That was definitely agency owner hating on the agency. Beware of agency title. No, I like that one. And I like the way that it's going. Like, you know, guys, people listening out there, y'all have to know Ryan takes care of all the social media, all the stuff that you see on TikTok, IG Reels, you know, so YouTube Shorts. So always make sure that when you see that, you remember Ryan is doing that and he's doing a great job. So I just wanted
Thank you very much, brother. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I wanted to shout out my co-host here. So, but yeah, we have a pretty loaded episode, I feel like. You know, I guess we could kick it off.
We're going to get straight in?
Yeah, we could get straight in. All right. So welcome, everybody, to the PPC Cave. My name is Gene, and this is my co-host Ryan Fenton. And today we continue our series, Which Google Ads Campaign Should I Run? And the long-awaited and expected episode called PMax Campaigns for Google Ads. Yeah, this was something that we are probably going to have a few disagreements maybe, but in a very constructively critical way, constructive criticism, whatever I was trying to say. But yeah, it's going to be constructive. But initial thoughts, Ryan, before I get into the intro.
Yeah, you say we're going to have some disagreements, but we both like to run Performance Max campaigns. I mean, probably you so more than I do. I prefer standard shopping campaigns, but PMax has a place in Google Ads. And, you know, I'm going to run through when it gets to my time on the mic. I'm going to run through some of the points that I've got, but I know you've got a lot to get through. And, you know, like I was going to say later on, but this is your episode. You know, I feel like this is very much like I felt like the search one was a bit, well, it was kind of 50-50, I guess. But for this one, this is a very Gene episode. So I think this is going to be more you than me. I'm going to chime in now and then, but I think you run Performance Max. You swear by it. I think you like it a lot more than I do. So, you know, we've both got pros and cons we're going to go through, but I'm going to try and keep quiet for the most part and just let you throw it down.
Yeah, I mean, well, I appreciate that. I think you definitely have a great experience with Performance Max too. So I know for a fact that we'll be able to bounce ideas back and forth, which is kind of the benefit of having both of our different experiences as co-host speaking on one podcast, you know. And the last episode, as Ryan alluded to, was search, and today we're talking about Performance Max. And as everyone knows, Google Ads themselves mentioned that Performance Max and search go great together. It's basically our last episode was search, one of the oldest or the oldest campaign type, versus now Performance Max, the newest campaign type. So it's kind of gone full circle. And next episode, well, actually you'll see this after, but I'll do a screen recording also of me setting up a Performance Max campaign, as you'll see Ryan's search screen cap after this next one that's going to come out. So, the biggest thing with Performance Max, I think, as an intro is it, like I said, it works great, solid with search alongside a search campaign, alongside a shopping campaign. And a lot of what Performance Max does is accentuate what's going on the account. Accentuate means magnifies or, elaborates upon either the positivity of what's going on in the account or the negativity of what's going on in the account. So, I have this in my notes, but I think there's a little quote from Star Wars. If y'all are into Star Wars, if you remember, it was Yoda to Anakin when Padme died, and he said the fear of loss is a path to the dark side. So if anyone out there is a freelancer and you lost a client, maybe you couldn't find out or figure out the jigsaw puzzle of optimizing the right way for a client, make sure you put Performance Max in your toolbox and come to the dark side and come to the future with us as we go into Performance Max. Ryan, you can start it off if you want. I think it's your turn here.
Thank you very much. I'm going to actually say something that, you kind of said this to me a few months ago before we started doing the podcast. And it was really like a aha moment, like a eureka, like a little bit of a like light bulb kind of moment for me. And you said, and it's not really to do with Performance Max as such, but it's kind of somewhat included. But you said to me, Gene, that, we all get caught up in trying to focus on which campaign type is best and this, that, and the other. Put yourself in the business owner's shoes and think about not what campaign type I should run, whether it's, I'm on manual bidding and this is great. Actually, what is going to drive sales? What is going to get leads? And if something's going to get sales and leads, then go for that. So, and you said, try and look at it from like an e-commerce owner's perspective and see what's working. Do you remember? I mean, I can't remember. Do you remember saying that to me?
Yeah.
What was the point that, I can't remember exactly what you said, but it was along those lines. I don't think like as a Google Ads advertiser, think as a business owner and what's working or something.
Yeah. I mean, a holistic approach is kind of what I always envisioned for things that may be outside of Google Ads where we can't really figure out the puzzle. Just thinking of it from the actual, like outside of Google Ads, like a holistic perspective, I guess is what I was saying.
I think it was that. And obviously you have a deep history and understanding of e-commerce, with running successful e-commerce businesses yourself and things like that. So I think when you said that, you phrased it in such a way where it just made me click and think, wow, yeah, I shouldn't get so caught up in which campaign type, which bidding strategy to run. I should actually think what's working. Like from a business standpoint, take a step back and say, actually, you know what? It doesn't matter if I'm using maximize conversions as an automated bidding strategy. If it's getting results, that's the bigger picture here. I could be very vain and say, right, I'm not going to run Performance Max because I'm a manual standard shopping guy, and that's where I want to have most control. But actually, if Performance Max is working and it's giving you a return in terms of sales, leads, whatever it might be, then why not run it? You're going to keep the client for longer. You're going to keep the client happier for longer. And not only that, if you're a business owner, put your money towards what's working. If Performance Max is working, then just let it run. So that's just something that you said to me. Or did you want to chime in?
Yeah, and I think to add to that point, I think that's kind of the nuance with Google Ads in general is like we've said before, you can have the same industry or the same offering, but in two different accounts, it's always going to be different results, and really figuring out the puzzle is difficult. That's why there's a lot of people that don't understand Google Ads. And, in the future, I'm sure there's a lot of people looking back at this episode saying this is very valuable because it is a confusing, thing to optimize. And like Ryan said, if it's working, Performance Max is working despite it being new or the black box of Google, whatever it may be, it'll be very, very, it'll be in your interest and in the client's interest to do what's working just because, it's what's best for the client. Right. So yeah, I totally agree with that sentiment, Ryan.
Cool. Well, you said it like a few months ago, and I think it's always stuck with me. And it won't be the first time that I mention it in the show. I think as the series continue, as the episodes go on, I'm going to be bringing it up more and more because it's a really valid point. And we all get so caught up in bidding strategies, campaign types, and the data. And you just need sometimes to take a step back and say, what's actually working? And let's just focus on that. But anyway, I'm going to quickly run through my stuff because this is your episode. This is your time to shine, and I don't want to tread on your toes here. So let me run through my stuff and then I'm going to hand it back to you. But yeah,
Okay.
we feel free to chime in and stuff. So number one, I think Performance Max works really well if you're a business owner or if you're an advertiser and you have a client who has a low budget. If they're just wanting to get started and they don't have a big budget, maybe it's £10 a day, $10 a day, whatever it might be, Performance Max is the best campaign type to go for. Really easy to set up for one thing if you're a business owner. And I was saying this to somebody else the other day. It used to be smart campaigns where you just kind of set it up and then let it run and see what happens. But Performance Max is the new version of that, I think. If you're a business owner, you can just put $10 a day in, £10 a day in, and get this campaign up and running with pretty much little to no effort, really, and get good results. With a smart campaign, it was always low quality results, cheap clicks, not very well optimized. I think Performance Max is the next level. You can actually get some really good data, some really good sales, some really good conversions. So I think if you're on a low budget, Performance Max is for you. And it's because it advertises across so many different channels. As a preface, Performance Max advertises on YouTube, on search results, on Shopping Channel, on YouTube, on Google Discover, a display network. It also has dynamic remarketing built in as well. So it can work really well for those on a low budget because you're advertising across all the different channels, and Google's going to go and advertise where your audience is. It's going to identify where your target market is, and then it's going to put more budget behind that. So yeah, for example, I've got a client who is in the e-commerce niche. They tried Google Ads ages ago. They tried a standard shopping campaign. They tried a smart campaign, and it didn't really work for them. And I spoke with them and I basically said, look, this is what I think. We should run a Performance Max campaign and we should focus on a category of your products. And it's converting, and it's still early days with this client. And month one was great. Month two was a bit slower. And month three, we've just made a few changes, but they're happy with the results. It's a slow and steady wins the race type of situation because they don't really have the budget yet. But once they start to see that return come in more and more, they're probably going to put more money into the pot, into the advertising budget, and start to grow that up, that campaign. And I think that's the best way to do it. Quickly as well, I think Performance Max works well for weird and wonderful niches. So if you have a client that is in a very peculiar niche, it can work really well. So for example, I have a client in the chess niche, and they do chess tutoring and chess teachings and lessons and things like that. I tried for months with a search campaign and it just wouldn't budge, it wouldn't convert. And then all of a sudden, I turned on a Performance Max campaign, and it was like somebody turned the light on in the room, and all of a sudden we're converting left, right, and center, and it's doing really well. So if you've got a strange niche, whether it's like a chess niche or just a really bizarre niche, Performance Max campaign can work well. And again, it goes back to identifying where your target market is hanging out. It might not be on the search results page. It might not be on the shopping channel. They could be hanging out in Gmail. For all you know, they could be hanging out on the Discovery Channel, whatever. Not the Discovery Channel, but the Discover Network of Google. They could be hanging out on YouTube. You don't really know, but that's what Performance Max does well. It's going to advertise across all the different platforms that Google has, and it's going to show you where your target market is, essentially. And it can work well for B2B, and it can work well for lead generation. Again, that chess client that I've got, they don't sell any products. They're a lead generation business. And I think so many times people think that Performance Max is strictly for online retail, for e-commerce, but no, it can actually, in some cases, work quite well for lead generation. Gene, did you have anything you wanted to kind of chip in with what I said, or?
Yeah. So you did mention smart shopping. And I think that's actually reminded me of an anecdote with my oldest Google Ads account. And if y'all remember, Smart Shopping came out in 2018. And I take these Google Ads calls with their support team just to, just to humor them and to listen and maybe try to figure out more information. And I remember they were really adamant, like they are now with Performance Max. At that point in time, standard shopping was the gold standard, because that was the only thing that we had, and the account was doing really well. And they were like, "Hey, ditch Google Ads, manual shopping for smart shopping," and they kept saying that. So I gave it a try. I remember giving it a try. I was very apprehensive just because it's kind of the smaller version of what Performance Max is, but just on shopping, right? Not on all platforms. And it in the first 3 or 4 months, I was blown away. I was like, "There's no keywords. This is just automatically on like this. Like this is great." And what happened throughout that year after 2018, 2019, I left it on and got good return on ad spend, and it slowly decreased in scale. You couldn't scale it up, so I reverted back to a shopping campaign. I think what Ryan just mentioned, I think it kind of reminds me that the predecessor of Performance Max was Smart Shopping, but there was that inability to scale just because it was on one platform. It was on shopping. And now that Performance Max is here, I rarely have to go back if everything is dialed in. And we have a shopping campaign, search Performance Max, and I layered that Performance Max on as I'm trying to scale. It does a really good job taking that next level forward. And knock on wood, it hasn't failed me yet, but the account has to be in the perfect storm for it together. So I just kind of wanted to bring that up because you reminded me, and that's a good point. The smart shopping, Performance Max, basically is what smart shopping was, just on one shopping tab or one shopping platform. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
No, that was great. And, just to kind of pick up on that, you can kind of do smart shopping in Performance Max campaigns. If you just create a feed only campaign or asset group, I should say, you create your Performance Max campaign and then you go in and you don't give it any headlines, you don't give it any assets, descriptions, images, or any of that stuff. You don't provide it with an audience signal. You don't provide it with any search terms or anything like that. You just literally give it the shopping feed. That's essentially what smart shopping used to be. It just used to be you give the campaign the feed and it will optimize on the shopping channel. And because it has dynamic remarketing built in, it's going to remarket to people that previously left the website and show them the products that they were looking at. So that is something that, people say smart shopping is dead. It kind of is, but it kind of isn't. You can get away with it just by creating a feed only asset group in Performance Max and pushing and ensuring that 100% of that budget, if you were to just create a feed only asset group in a Performance Max campaign, 100% of your advertising budget is going to go to the shopping channel. It's not going to advertise on YouTube. It's not going to advertise on Gmail, Discover, anywhere else. It's just going to go on that shopping channel. So that's something I was going to say as well. And what I've put here is that if you don't have any YouTube content, Performance Max, I'm going to be bipping and bopping all around, by the way, but if you don't have any YouTube content, then Performance Max is really good because it's been a couple of times where I've had clients that they don't have a YouTube channel, they don't have any YouTube content, but I feel as though they would benefit greatly from having a presence on YouTube. Case in point, that's what happened with my chess client, created a YouTube video for them. All of a sudden, we start getting a lot more clicks, a lot more impressions, a lot more conversions come through. And I think it's because people want to see, at least for that kind of business, who the tutors are going to be, who the teachers going to be, what kind of things, what's the setup look like in class and things like that in person. So I think YouTube videos can really get across certain things. I did an audit the other day for a hotel company, like a retreat, and what better way to showcase, the hotel, the rooms, the features, the benefits, the retreat itself than to have a YouTube campaign. Sometimes actions speak louder than words, and I think having a YouTube campaign can work really well. Even if you don't have any YouTube content, you can go into a Performance Max campaign and just create like a slideshow of images and advertise that on YouTube. And it's good enough that it does a job, that it gets views and clicks and things like that. You don't need to hire like a production company to go out and record a promotional video for you. If you've got some high quality images of your business, of your service offering, of your products, whatever it might be, then you can kind of splice them and splash them together in a bit of a video, and it's really easy to edit. Anyone can really do it. Google make it very, very straightforward and simple to put together a 30-second YouTube advert through Performance Max. So that's a really strong like benefit, I think, of Performance Max. And yeah, what I would also say is that I use them mostly for bestsellers and highest margin. Again, I've got a client who, my oldest client in the UK, in the caravan niche, like motorhomes and things like that. And he sells a lot of parts. No, not motorhomes, like RV, I guess you could say. Like, what do you have? Like trailers
Yeah,
and things like that.
trailers.
Yeah. And I was going to say trailer trash, but that's like Jerry Springer territory.
Whoa.
I don't want to offend anyone. But yeah, so he's so he's my oldest client, and basically I've got all his highest margin products in a Performance Max campaign, and then in the background I've got a standard shopping campaign with all his like B products and C products. So products that he wants to advertise and promote and sell, but they don't give him a good return as much as his highest margin ones do. But he knows what his highest margin products are. So it makes sense just to push those into Performance Max and scale that up and give it its own budget and let it do its thing. Again, it's got dynamic remarketing built in. Let's make use of that. It advertises across many different platforms. Let's just make use of that. So that works really well. And as I mentioned, it can work alongside standard shopping. There's a bit of a stigma in people saying that Performance Max and standard shopping can't work in harmony together. That's not really the case. If you're advertising the same products in the same in two different campaigns, they're going to fight, and Performance Max is always going to win, hands down. If you're pushing high margin products or your best sellers in Performance Max, and then in the background you're advertising maybe some testing products or smaller margin or like cheaper products or whatever it might be, that can work quite well together as well. And I'm going to I'll say this bit as well, and then I'll let Gene kind of chirp up with some kind of thoughts. But I think, it can also run alongside a search campaign, and this is something that Gene and I love to do, is that creating a Performance Max campaign and then having a general search campaign in the background, and that can work really well because they feed into each other. If you're getting conversions through the general search campaign, that can feed into the overall account and the Performance Max campaign itself, and influence and say, look, this is what conversions we got, like 5 conversions in this last week or something. This is what conversions look like. Performance Max, you go out and find similar conversions based on what is previously converted, similar profiles of people who have historically converted. So it can influence and feed back into the Performance Max campaign and vice versa. I believe, I'm not sure there's any data to really back this up, but if you get conversions through the Performance Max campaign, I think that can influence the general search campaign as well. So, Gene, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think anything in the account by osmosis will feed off each other, and that could be bad too. Like we mentioned in the intro, if your search campaign isn't really working out and then you run a Performance Max, well, then maybe you need better qualified traffic, because, it really starts with search, in my opinion. But yes, I do believe there's that kind of ping pong effect for sure.
Cool. I just got a few more points and then I'm going to shut up and let you talk anyway. So one thing I would say is that, and this is where we're going to start to disagree, I think max conversions is a better bidding strategy in Performance Max than maximize conversion value, or maximize conversion value target ROAS, or maximize conversion value target CPA. I think it is. I'm not sure if that's That's what it's called, or maximize conversions target CPA. My belief, and Gene's going to disagree, and that's fine. We can, get the handbags out and have a little bit of a disagreement here.
Let's do it.
My belief is that when you use maximize conversion value or target ROAS, you're adding a restriction to the bidding strategy. You're limiting the performance and the capabilities of the performance matched campaign, because you're saying, okay, go out and get me a return on ad spend of like 5-1 or 7-1 or 10-1 return on ad spend. You're telling Google to meet a certain criteria that you're setting. And it's the same with the target CPA options. In some cases, both can work well, and I have used them historically. But with target CPA, you're saying, right, I don't want to pay a penny over $50 to generate a conversion, to generate a lead, or whatever it might be. You're adding that restriction so that the bidding strategy can't perform freely. It has to meet requirements set by you. So you're adding you're capping the performance of the strategy. I prefer to use something like maximize conversions, where I'm just saying to Google, go out and get me as many conversions as possible. I don't want to add a restriction to the bidding strategy. I don't want to add a limiter or cap the bidding strategy. I'd rather it just go out and get me as many conversions as possible. And from the data that I've run and seen, I've seen that it actually outperforms maximize conversion value, because you're not adding a restriction on the bidding strategy. You can get more value coming in. You can get a better return just by using maximize conversions. So, Gene, any disagreements there?
I mean, so going off what Google's definition of both, right? Maximize conversions versus maximize conversion value. Maximize conversions is usually utilized for a business or offering that has roughly the same conversion value. If it's $1 or everything is around $5 to $10, or it could be, a lead gen opt-in that's, attributed to like one conversion or, $1, whatever it may be, whatever you choose to place upon that. And then maximize conversion value is best suited for those looking to, it's more so the conversion value, not the number of conversions. And where I do agree that there is a place for max conversions, and I think that there could be a stepping stone. I believe that I would rather use max conversions. And once I see max conversions working, I wouldn't be opposed to creating an experiment or layering on max conversion value to see which bid strategy does better. For me, maximize conversion value in e-commerce is really important, because I'm all about the AOV, the average, volume of order, or how much a specific order is. Because if you're looking from an e-commerce perspective, yes, I could utilize max conversions and I could have multiple conversions at $5 a clip, which that's 5 separate transactions. If you're on Shopify, that's 5 times 0.026 plus 30 cents on the selling fee, plus 5 different, fulfillment charges, whatever it may be, and 5 different, opportunities for it to be a chargeback or a delay, 5 different touch points from customer service, as opposed to creating a max conversion value or utilizing max conversion value where you're looking more so of like the average order value as opposed to conversions or the amount of conversions. Not to say that max conversion value works all the time. It is tricky. Max conversion value is tricky to optimize because it will restrict, just like a TROS, like a target ROAS, it will restrict to that particular whatever you set it to, especially if you have a ROAS on it. But I am not, I do believe there is still a way to, okay, yeah, if I have a 5 ROAS and I'm good with that, there is still a way to increase that return on ad spend with just regular best practices and good data work. And it doesn't always have to be only at a 5 or whatever you set your ROAS to. So I think, it depends, like I always say, but if you're using e-commerce, the goal is to increase AOV. So therefore I use max conversion value.
Cool. Thank you for that. Really appreciate it. Gene is obviously wrong, so don't listen to a word that he has to say.
Just delete
Definitely
that.
listen to me. Yeah. Just delete that bit out of the show. I'm going to wrap up with two things, kind of bringing it back to the overall theme of the show, which is which campaign should I run? What's the title of the which Google Ads campaign should I run? And this is the episode Performance Max. So just to wrap it up then, downside is there's no optimization, very little room for optimization with Performance Max. I think that's good for business owners who want to get a campaign up and running with very little effort, low maintenance, just get something out the door, advertise their products, advertise their business. Performance Max can work well. So I think it's good for business owners in that, I always talk about ease of access and getting something out the door really quick. Performance Max is good for that. It's bad for advertisers because we like to have control over the data that we're seeing. We like to be able to influence the direction of the campaign because, AI, it's good, but they don't always get it right. A human Google Ads account manager understands everything that happens outside of the Google Ads platform, delays in shipments, pricing changes, things such as pandemics and things like that, which affect the world. So Google and Google's AI doesn't really understand that. We do, and that's why I think having that human touch and that actual Google Ads account manager optimizing your campaigns is important. So that's why I think Performance Max, it can be good for advertisers, but for the most part, because there's very little you can do in terms of optimization, it's bad for advertisers. With that being said, what you can optimize in Performance Max are the budget. You can be dynamic with the budget. You can increase it. You can lower it. In my testing, slow and steady wins the race with Performance Max. I've tried taking Performance Max campaigns from £10 a day all the way up to £50, £60 a day. It doesn't work. It tanks the campaign. It just gets confused. What I've found work best is by doing £10 increments every 3 to 5 days. So just to scale it slowly and gradually rather than go from 0 to 60. And the Google AI is like, what are you telling me to do, and gets confused. So you can optimize the budget. You can optimize the assets, the images, the headlines, the descriptions, all that kind of good stuff. You can change the bidding strategies and you can exclude products. But everything after that, you can't really do much else. You just kind of give Google the budget, the keys to the kingdom, in my opinion, and then Google goes out and really optimizes for best results. That's it for me. Gene, did you have any final comments on what I said, or?
No, I think what you said was fair, and I do like to preface when I get into my portion that Ryan does use Performance Max, so let's not get it twisted. I know there are other people out there that have podcasts, not to name anybody, that are strictly not going to use Performance Max, but Ryan understands the value of when something is introduced to examine it, to test it, and then afterwards create a conclusion, right? Instead of a prejudged notion. Ryan is like a good digital marketer or PPC manager where we're creating tests and seeing if the test outcome is either positive or negative, and then reacting to that, as opposed to us reacting to previous experiences or previous wins in the past, which we understand in the realm of Google Ads, 2 to 3 years is ancient history. There are a lot of things in the last 2 to 3 years that if we were to enable in a specific account, or still deemed to this day in 2024 as a best practice, would be basically irrelevant, if not harming the account that we're managing. So I think Performance Max, it being very young in its age in regards to the campaign type, and may I add, only getting better with more data that Google runs through it, I think is inevitably, as much as I don't want it to be, going to be the future of how PPC is, because we all know that Google Ads in general is the leading cutting edge PPC platform, heads and shoulders above any other platform out there. Amazon sponsored ads, Bing, it doesn't matter. Google Ads will always be cutting edge leading technology. And I think the money that they put in to Performance Max won't be denied. And I think they had a bit of a test run, like me and Ryan were speaking about earlier, with smart shopping and how they utilized that and saw the pitfalls of maybe the shortcomings of it not being able to be scalable because it was only under the shopping tab. But now that you have all these different platforms, especially YouTube, as Ryan mentioned earlier, YouTube itself is probably the second largest search engine. And for us not to be able to utilize that all in one stop shop with Performance Max being the campaign type that embeds this automatically and does the predictions for you, I think it's something to be, noted that we might be leaving clicks, impressions, traffic, therefore even conversions on the table because we're leaving that out. Or maybe we are running a separate YouTube campaign, but it's just not working. Performance Max really integrates all of that together so that you just have a bunch of assets right there and then that you could go in and fill out, and it starts doing that job for you. So, getting into it, I think personally, and I know it could work for lead gen. I know it can, as Ryan can attest. But I think specifically now in our snapshot of 2024, I think really Performance Max does great with e-commerce. And I have, my perspective on that or my ideas, which I'm not sure, but it could be anecdotal at this point. Well, a lot of why maybe e-commerce is a better fit is because of the utilization of Google Merchant Center. I think it really, if you have all of your fields filled out in Google Merchant Center, that is the gatekeeper to anything on the shopping tab, so I think that's really important. And also, if you were to ask me, Gene, I am starting a Performance Max campaign and where do I start? How do I structure the asset groups? Is it one asset group? Is it a catch-all? Is it bestsellers? In my opinion, it doesn't stray too far from a search or shopping campaign where the end goal, if it not being the beginning goal, is to end up with a particular stable of bestsellers that are, firing at a high rate of conversion. But I could be perfectly honest with you. Sometimes I don't have that data. And sometimes we don't know that, right? So I do run 2 asset groups usually, where if it's a brand new campaign, we only have Shopify as historical sales data. I will have a hunch of bestsellers according to Shopify. But according to Shopify, those bestsellers don't always translate according to Google Ads or according to Performance Max. So I run 2 asset groups. I have a catch-all campaign, and I also have a bestsellers campaign that I'll mock up through either Shopify or, if you do have historical data in the Google Ads account, through the Google Ads account. And the biggest thing with that, as Ryan spoke about earlier, is it is tough to optimize. I totally agree. But I'll get into it right now because it does kind of make sense. So one big thing is, if you are running a catch-all campaign, make sure that you go into the listing groups and individualize the item ID. Once you have that data, right, you could look through the products and see maybe you ran it for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and you're starting to see the shape of the patterns of which products in your catch-all campaigns are, 1, not getting impressions, 2, getting clicks but not conversions, and then the best case scenario is clicks and conversions. So I'll tier that out, where if 2 or 3 weeks go by, I have a catch-all campaign, I'm starting to see which products are getting clicked. I'll go ahead and exclude all of it and then create a new item ID where it's itemized, where you go through the product groups and say, okay, this got a conversion, this stays. This has a high CTR, this stays. Okay, this got a lot of impressions, but no clicks, get that out of there. So you could start to optimize it, not the way we would optimize either a search or shopping with negative keywords, but more of a product listing optimization, where we're only feeding budget to the products that are going to get us, first of all, conversions, and then second of all, hopefully a high CTR. So, that's kind of the beginning part, but don't forget that you don't want to start a Performance Max campaign. And I've seen this on so many clients where they start a Performance Max campaign and they just leave the same items in there, and none of them, they've been running for 6 months and none of them get clicks, or they'll get 500 clicks and no conversions, and then you'll have the product right underneath it get 5 clicks and 3 conversions. And in my opinion, that is data screaming out saying, exclude me, get rid of me. And then if you do that, that is the beginning, of being able to create that catch-all to a bestseller ad group. So that's kind of one thing. I know that was long-winded. Ryan, any thoughts on that quick point?
I love your impression of a product saying
Exclude me. Yeah.
No, not at all. I think this is valuable. I was just, while you were talking then, and I was just thinking these episodes are getting more and more valuable. I think, last week's episode, which campaign should I run? Search campaign. It was jam-packed full of content of high quality value, I think. And I know we're kind of patting ourselves on the back when we say that, but I think it's genuinely true. And I think it's the same for this episode as well. You're just running through so much gold right now. You're hitting the nail on the head. I just want to stay quiet and just learn and listen from you, really. So keep going, brother.
Thanks, man. Yeah, that's how I felt last week when you were doing the lead gen portion of search. So that's why we, this is another thing, man. I keep saying it. This is why we do this, because when you teach, you learn twice, and I'm learning twice, thrice, 4 times with Ryan being my co-host. So I think it's great. So moving towards the headlines and descriptions, I mean, this is overall practice. We don't have to, beat this over the head all the time, but make sure that you're looking at the USPs, studying and getting your product knowledge up, and understanding maybe what in your search campaign, you should have a search campaign, are you running that is a great converting ad, and you don't have to stray too far from that. Really make sure that the USPs that you have in your search campaign that works, it'll probably be good headlines and descriptions also in your Performance Max campaign. So that's a stencil that I usually go with. But yeah, make sure you're building out all those headlines and descriptions. Excuse me 1 second. Sorry, I'm getting a little too passionate here. But a lot of the time with your search campaign traffic, establishing that's one thing that I just talked about with a client. If you're curious to understanding why a Performance Max campaign is not doing as good as you thought it would, revisit your search campaign and look, because more often than not, you're going to have opportunities to optimize that search campaign. And if you optimize that search campaign, by default, your PMax campaign, you might not see it, but it is getting optimized as well. So the traffic, the qualified traffic that you have on your search campaign will only be as good as your Performance Max qualified traffic, despite us not seeing the search term, despite us not seeing the search keywords, because it's not like search, it's not like shopping, but you have to take Google's word for it, and it's plastered all over Google's website. Search campaign and Performance Max work in tandem with each other. We don't have much signals to input into a PMax campaign in ways of search terms. So therefore, the search campaign that is live will be by default what's bringing signals to that Performance Max campaign. So if you're confused, like, Gene, I've done all you said with Performance Max, how's your search campaign? Ask yourself that question and revisit back to the fundamentals of what Google says. If you have a great search campaign where it's driving traffic and getting conversions, that means your Performance Max should follow suit. Where else? And also, what I always do is utilize audiences. There's so many different ways to utilize audiences. But the biggest, I guess, tip that I have in the beginning is make sure you're not trying to control Google ads in a sense of, I only want women ranging from 18 to 25, 10% of household income, in the top 10% of household income. That's not how that works. If you're selling women's garments, make sure that you do, an audience for women only. But household income, don't even worry about that. That's not what you should be worrying about in the beginning stages of optimizing or creating a Performance Max campaign. Ryan, I wanted to ask you, do you do much in audiences for Performance Max?
I was going to ask you a similar question, actually. No. Do you mean an audience signal or the audience segment?
The signal.
The signal. Yeah, I do just the standard stuff. So I do the search terms. I do things such as the in-market and affinity things. So Google, when you create a Performance Max campaign, it's going to ask you to do an audience signal. And then from there, you can say, right, focus on people who, let's just say it's hoodies, because we're both wearing hoodies. Let's just say it's people that like fashion and like clothing,
Mhm.
and hoodies might actually be like a demographic, into not a demographics as such, but more like an interest, like a market. People are in the market to buy a hoodie or something like that. So that's kind of, I'll give it like a gentle nudge, and I'll say, right, this is the type of people who are typically attributed to this product. So if it's hoodies, for example, I'm going to say, right, men's clothing, women's clothing, fashion, that kind of stuff, to kind of guide it towards the right type of people, to say, hey, this is typically the people that are going to be buying this product. And then I'll also throw in if there's any sort of like client data or like business data saying that people who've previously purchased, or people who have
Yeah.
previously visited the website. I'll throw that in there as well. Add the search terms in, so like best men's hoodie, best ladies hoodie, whatever, kids hoodie, whatever it might be. And then I think that's kind of it. When it comes to actual, like what you're saying, Gene, about demographics in terms of more female than male, or
Mhm.
age ranges, or industries and things like that, not so much. I don't touch the demographics. I keep that very broad and open,
Yeah.
because I want to advertise to everybody and anybody. But when it comes to search terms, when it comes to more like in the market and affinity, like hobbies and things like that, that's where I'll do a lot of my work. Um, my question to you was actually kind of more towards the search campaign. Do
Mhm.
you, because we both agree that the search campaign influences the Performance Max campaign, do you do anything with the audiences in the search campaign? Do you do anything like that, or do you just leave that broad?
I very broad,
Mhm.
especially if it's like I said, if it's like women's garment, or predominantly like a man, for men, I'll do stuff in that arena. But I'm really not going deeper than that, because you kind of bring up a good point, especially with the way that you do things with audience signals in Performance Max. You don't want to choke out the traffic. You don't want to restrict who's going to see the data, because at that point, the whole reason for even starting off with a Performance Max, or utilizing a Performance Max, is because it does push to all these different platforms. And if you were to kind of ratchet that down, you might as well just go with shopping, bro. Or you might as well just do something more granular, where you have control. And I think that is kind of essentially the tug tug of war in our brains as PPC managers, is we're so jaded by things that we can't point data to, because a good PPC manager thrives on insights and data, as our previous episodes would explain. But Performance Max, you can put signals in it, but there is that fine line where you're starting to see either maybe conversions, or clicks, or impressions begin to drop. And me and Ryan do a good job of this. We have change logs as PPC managers of significant changes. I know you have change history in your account, but it's different, right? When you're actually writing it in a docs, where March 12th, I changed the bid strategy, increased the return on ad spend. How does that look, in June, right? So those are the things that we have written down, where, okay, I did this, I did that. Am I in the account too much? Because sometimes Performance Max, if you set it up correctly and use these best practices, you'll start to see good data file in, and you'll start to see things become optimized, not because of your doing, but because of the nature of what Performance Max is, and that is a lot of data, a lot of traffic, right? If you compare a shopping search to Performance Max on impressions alone or clicks alone, you can see that $5 on a shopping campaign or search campaign, it should spend that $5, right? But sometimes it'll be a little bit under here and there, whatever it may be. Maybe you made a negative keyword, or you made things more phrase and exact as opposed to broad, and you start to see that traffic decrease. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. But for Performance Max, each day they're like, okay, you increase the budget. Well, we're using all of that. So I think, as a general rule, when you dive into Performance Max, understanding the nature of what you're in now, that you're in Google's hands, as scary as it is, and you just have to make sure that you do a little guidance, but don't try to go overload with the audience and the signals and the household income, and you have all these crazy exclusions. Well, I'll get to exclusions later, and things like that, because it does thrive on being able to be fluid and liquid with the search and the traffic that brings. So moving forward, I also make sure that all of the assets are filled out. And I've been seeing this more lately, especially. I've seen a lot of the clients that, don't have a YouTube channel, don't have YouTube videos. I see a little bit of increase for those clients that do have that, like a dedicated video. I know they can create a video for you, but sometimes that PowerPoint video where you have that one photo from the asset group with the little headline, and YouTube makes, or Google makes that for you, that doesn't cut it. So I've been telling clients, if you have shorts or YouTube videos that are on your YouTube channel, where you have an item description and a link back to your e-commerce product page, where they could go through and click the video, and that little item description or that little video description becomes your product page, landing page, where you have all your items there that can be clicked and then go straight to your product page. I think that's something that it's going to be more relevant, especially moving on forward. Ryan, do you have any experiences with, like just adding YouTube videos and shorts from your clients on a Performance Max campaign?
Yeah, it definitely gives them another angle of attack. And, you start to cover all bases, because it's not just what you're doing on the search results. It's not just what you're doing in the shopping results. It's also becomes, and like you said, YouTube is almost like a search engine. Everyone's looking for content and things like that. You can find tutorials, cooking videos, like how to, I'm a big golfer, so how to hit your golf irons, your golf clubs, and things like that. So it's definitely a good search engine. And having visibility on that is key, especially whether you're a national or even local business, because you can advertise to a local demographic, a certain radius, and get your name out there and get that brand awareness, get that reach. So it just gives you another angle of attack, really. But no, you're doing good, man. So I'm really enjoying this.
Awesome. Yeah. And, we're almost done here. I just have a couple more points, but especially we're moving from video to photos. I think one huge utilization that's unique is the different type of photos that we could put in a Performance Max campaign. In search, you could do some of that. And also in shopping, you have your default photo on your Shopify or your website. But I think to be able to add not only product photos and maxing out 20 out of 20 photos, but the variety of both, our vertical and landscape photos is really important. And mixing that in with lifestyle photos. And I think this is what Google ads in general, and Google is trying to really strive for, is the unique experience of what this website brings, right? And to those that are, not to say anything bad about drop shippers, but there are some drop shippers out there that have one photo, and you could tell it was the photo that was reused multiple times, and it's just the product, right? Well, Google is, I believe, smart enough to understand if a company is invested in their website as an e-commerce store, they're going to have more than just a product photo. And where do you display these beautiful photos that you invested in? Well, Performance Max. You'll have different types of vertical and horizontal photos that are probably going to show more on desktop. So if your photos are only vertical, or yeah, you have a landscape photo, but it's of a vertical photo, that's not a good experience. And Google's going to start to be able to crack down on those things, right? Because I know there is a study down the road, right, where if you have lifestyle photos on your website, I'm sure that is better than just these stock white product photos with just a product in them. There's an investment factor, I guess that you could kind of call it. So I think that's really important to make sure that you're not just being favored on mobile, but desktop as well, because there are a lot of e-commerce companies out there that if you were to look at the data and strip it down on GA4, conversions are predominantly on desktop. As opposed to if you just being on mobile, it might not be the right time. It might not be where you're actually getting all the conversions, despite Google being a mobile first index. That's how they do things. But I think it's good to be able to switch it up and also provide photos that are landscape and vertical. Any thoughts on that, Ryan?
I think a lot of people tend to forget that, where do we spend a lot of our time? We all have jobs. Some of us work for ourselves and self-employed and things like that. But for the most part, a lot of us spend time office workers and things like that, in front of a desktop, in front of a computer, a laptop. As much as we want to be on our phones, on social and things like that, usually between the hours of 9 till 5 or whatever it is, we're sat in an office in front of a computer doing work. And sometimes, it's okay to go and take a look for a product or a service. If you are an avid gardener or something like that, and you want to, find a new gardener in your area, then you might do that while you're at work. Or even if you're having lunch in the office, on your lunch break, you might start looking for products. It could be, where to get a new hoodie, or it could be, whatever it might be, a dress, some trousers or pants, as you guys call them, or some sneakers or whatever it might be. So, excuse me. So don't rule out advertising on computers for sure, because, for Monday to Friday, for the working day, it's the majority of the time where we spend a lot of our time is on computers, on laptops and things like that. So it has a place for sure. But yeah, too many exclusions can really damage the campaign. I think, you want to kind of let the campaign run freely where possible. If you start saying, right, I only want to advertise in these locations on this device at this time of day, you're really narrowing the reach and the potential and the success of the campaign. Whereas if you keep things relatively open and broad and top level, Google's naturally going to find your target market and show the ads to them. So yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree on that. And that's a good segue to these last 2 points, both app and brand exclusions. And I like to use app exclusions where it's most relevant, right? If for some reason you're starting to see a lot of traffic come from, random apps on either Google Play or maybe you have an app that you're trying to advertise on iPhone only or something like that. Well, you could take away Android apps, you could take away books and references if you're selling something that's totally irrelevant to that. But I still want to caution people, right? If you start to go crazy on app exclusions and you have that change log, because Ryan and Gene told you to open up a docs and put that change log of all these relevant changes, and you see a week, 2 weeks, maybe conversions start to go down. Maybe there's impressions that decrease, or clicks that decrease, or traffic in general that decrease. And then you let it go for maybe another month or two, and you start seeing these things. Well, maybe it's time for you to relax on the exclusions, because you're taking data that might have been very valuable for you and you're excluding it out of the Performance Max campaign, where Ryan just said, with this type of campaign, it will naturally be able to pick up on these signals and data and traffic and serve the ads where they've seen the most traffic, conversions, wherever it may be. So I want to preface, even if you're doing brand exclusions, one brand exclusion that I usually do are the competitors. A lot of the time we've seen that happen on shopping or search, where we talked about it the other day. If someone is looking for a Tesla, God bless all the people that have Toyota Priuses, but it's not the same thing. So there is that brand loyalty there. Or if you're an Adidas guy, and somehow you're showing up on Nike, that's they're probably not going to switch over, right? So maybe brand exclusions make sense there, or even platforms like Amazon or eBay, because if you want to go head to head with Amazon, be my guest, but I'd rather not, right? So when it comes to brand exclusions and app exclusions, make sure that the very obvious is stated on there or excluded. But if you're starting to second guess, you're like, should I make this an exclusion? Should I not? You probably don't have enough data to confirm or deny that being an exclusion, right? So I can definitely go more in depth with all these other tactics and best practices, but as a whole, as a high level overview, I think we could stop there. Any final thoughts or last thoughts, Ryan, on Performance Max?
That was great. I think what you ran through was definitely on the money. A lot of value is to be taken away from what you said. Really, really good stuff. So no, I don't really have anything else. I think you covered it, and I think it's just, it has its place, like you said at the head of the show. You said Performance Max has its place in accounts, and I think you're 100% right. So I think you really covered it very, very well, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you've got next up your sleeve, if you want to share that with the viewers and the listeners.
Yeah. So after this, I'll be going in like Ryan did with a search campaign, but I'll be doing a little bit of a screen cap on our dummy account. And I'll be going through and just talking more about a little bit of an in-depth walkthrough visually, where I can go through and kind of set a Performance Max campaign up, or a little bit of the nuances that I might have missed or hadn't really had a chance to really dive into in this episode. I'll do that for the next episode. And like Ryan said, there is a place for it, but I think the biggest thing is, if you didn't hear anything that I said or that Ryan said, it's just make sure that you understand that with the search campaign, those are going to be the signals that are pulled from the Performance Max campaign. So in general, if you have a cold account and you're going straight to PMax, it could happen, because I've seen a crazy, client. I'm not going to name the niche. It was golf, but run a Performance Max campaign. And I look at the Google Merchant Center, everything is filled out. Everything is beautiful photos, and it just works. It just works. But that is very far and few between where you could go cold into a Performance Max campaign on a new account. Establish some signals, establish your search campaign, get conversions on search, get conversions on shopping. I promise you, if you take the time to not go to the shortcut of Performance Max, because Performance Max is the great accentuator. It'll either accentuate the positive in your account or accentuate the negative in your account, aka lots of spend and no conversions. So do that first, and I think you'll see great results in the future.
Thank you very much. I think that kind of wraps up the episode, to be honest. Where can people find you, Gene, if they have any more questions about Performance Max, if they want to work with you and have you manage the account? Where can they reach you?
Yeah, you can find me at genevillanos.com. Again, that is genevillanos.com.
Cool. And you guys can find me at ryanfentonppc.co.uk. We release these episodes every Monday. For me, when I wake up in the UK, this episode's already live. I don't even know what Gene does. He's a magician when it comes to posting these videos on YouTube and getting them up and running. He says something about mountain time. I don't even know what that is. Apparently, that's when the episodes go out. Like I said, if you're in the UK like me, these episodes just appear overnight like the Tooth Fairy. So, you don't have to worry about any time specifically. I'm making him laugh. That's really great. But yeah, keep a lookout. Every Monday morning, these episodes are going to be out. They're going to be live, and we're just going to keep rolling through the different campaign types. We've got so many different different episodes planned in over the coming weeks, months, maybe even years. We'll have to see how much Gene and I stay friends and get along. But I think we have a lot to kind of get through, and this is very much the start of a lot of different subjects in terms of Google Ads. It's such a dense kind of black box of information and different opportunities and potential. We've got a lot of experience to share. So yeah, feel free to reach out to the PPC Cave at gmail.com with any questions you've got. If it's about search campaigns, if it's about performance max campaigns, or even any other campaigns that we've not covered yet, if there's something you want us to talk about, any questions you've got, any episodes that you kind of want us to kind of go over in terms of maybe something wasn't clear and you want a little bit more information about what we talked about, we can do that. Just reach us at the ppccave at gmail.com. And stay tuned, guys, for more content. We release these on, what is it? Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. We've got a TikTok channel. We've got Instagram. We're everywhere, pretty much. You're gonna get sick of seeing us, I think. But keep a lookout for us. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you think what we're talking about is really valuable and you kind of like hearing our voices and you want to hear more of them. Then give us a like, subscribe to our channel. It really helps us. And we can't we can't wait for the next episode. So yeah, thanks for watching and speak to you guys soon.